All right, so welcome everybody to CMX Connect. Fasten your seatbelts, strap in, get ready. 500 miles per hour community ahead. We've got a selfie coupon with Pablo. Can't redeem it at a grocery store. Selfie coupon with Ilker. Can't redeem it when he's hula hooping. So screenshot this now. We are getting going. Boom. For Ilker, screenshot this now. Boom. Las Vegas is out the door. Sorry to repeat this. I forgot to hit record. Boom. If you want to get involved with CMX Connect Las Vegas, co-host ideas, volunteer, if you're ever out here, let me know. Today, we are kicking off with a rocket ship to talk about 2022 community planning with Pablo, the relationship flywheel and king of contact. CMX virtual guidelines. Be sure you really, 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 really like Fraggle Rock. Very important for you to enjoy the event today. Say hello in chat and let us know where you're from. Grab your favorite snack or drink. And after the event, be sure to take that post-event survey that will drop into your email. About today's featured speaker. So we've got about 8 hours of about them. So we're not going to go into all of it. But the most important thing to know about Pablo is BeTheStage.live. Amazing podcast, great content that he's putting out. And more than anything, he's dying to be your friend.
That's the most important part right there.
Exactly. Boom. And then CMX Connect. We've got over 60 chapters from around the world. You can always go to events.cmxhub.com. Check out all those amazing events. CMX is an amazing global organization for community professionals. We are uniting the world, helping the world, existing community professionals. And then for the 3-year-old, 4-year-old that's probably learning today, probably taking the Spaces model, the CMX training, that's going to be the next generation. We're also helping them out. Great place to get involved. CMX has a Slack as well. So definitely get involved there. We are powered by Bevy. So definitely it's a really cool tool. So check that out. And then for our group song today, I will get Juan Diego up here on stage if I can find Juan Diego. Let's find him. So Juan Diego, I hope you're ready to sing with me. Is there a Juan Diego? There we go. All right. Very cool. So we got a quick group song. So Juan Diego, let me know when you're ready and we will start singing. Juan Diego has left the building. Hello? Juan's like, nope. Let's see what Juan says. All right. Do we have any other volunteers that want to get up and sing with the group song? Bad singing only. It looks like it's just me today, huh? Very good.
I've exhausted my opportunity during the promo video, so I'll just for the sake of everyone, I'll just pull out of that opportunity.
All right. So Juan was there and he left. He's like, "Wait, singing? I'm out of here." Very good.
I won't leave you hanging, Blake.
Okay, let's go. So anybody can come up here. Just let us know in chat. I know it's like, hey, wait a minute. I just came to learn. I didn't come to sing, stuff like that. But we do it all here. So no one else in chat. Juan has left the building. So, all right. So we'll do a quick group song. We're not going to sing all of this, maybe. I don't know. But bad singing only. No other takers. Once, twice. Everyone's like, no way. All right. There's a place for us. Somewhere peace and community
and everyone around the world.
Don't look for us on my space. Someday. We'll always lead with love and caring. We'll always find a way of forgiving. There's a time for us. There's a time to shine. A time to unite the world with community and see. You can also adjust your volume to 3. I know this is painful. One day
Somewhere
Feel the community in
around
that
the
space.
world.
Somewhere. Unite the world. Unite the world.
Connect the world. Unite the
Always
world.
a place for us. At CMX. All right, so I don't know if that's a terrible icebreaker idea. Probably we just ran everybody off, but yeah, there we go. All right, so. And now, like for the main agenda, Pablo, if you want to just say a little bit about who you are for anything that we might have missed here, and we will get rocking.
Yeah, sure. I'm somebody that has been fortunate enough to find this tribe thanks to Jenny Weigel, right? Had a major aha moment in my life when my brother passed away, and I looked around at his funeral and found 1,200 people that showed up for it, and that value of those folks, and reflecting on them in my life, of how how much easier they made a really, really terrible couple of 2 years and terrible moment, made me want to devote my life to community. And for the last 8 years, I've been kind of punching in the dark at figuring out how you do this in a way that makes sense for businesses, right? And gets people to buy in on it, because at the end of the day, it's what's in it for them, right? So luckily, I feel like I cracked the code, and I'm building a business around it, and super happy to get the opportunity to speak in front of all you all and share everything that I know.
How excited are you today, Pablo?
I'd say quite excited.
Awesome. Yeah, so if you're at CMX Summit last year, and just to get that out of the way, so Pablo got cut off, but he did come back. We've got an amazing video we'll put into the chat where you can actually get that. But it's like, if you're like, wait a minute, Pablo looks familiar at CMX Summit. He was on a roll, and then his internet or something happened, but that was
the worst.
All right. So our first topic today is January 19th. You're probably sitting there right now doing community planning. Like, what am I going to do for this year? And maybe it's like, you could have some different goals and objectives there. So if you're in that sort of stage now, it's like, you're like, what do I do? And things like that. So our first topic is going to be around that. So for you there sitting doing this very thing, we're going to leave you with some actionable tips and recommendations. So we'll have Pablo last, and we'll start off with the European superstar known as Ochre.
And it's such a pleasure being here. And actually, it's great that you've mentioned, the session by Pablo, where he was actually having a lot of problems with the infrastructure. So I was actually the MC, the host there, the man of the world with many stories. So I guess that sums it up. Whether it's good stories or bad stories, it is yours to judge. But yeah, basically, it's a fantastic opportunity to be able to assist the opening of CMX Las Vegas, and the Highness and Excellency Blake over here. And of course, being in the presence of Pablo is just something else. So basically, when this session was being coined, for lack of a better expression, we were just thinking about the beginning of the year, when everyone was trying to, just to get their things together in terms of, the community, start the year off with a bang. So you're in the right place if you are looking for some tips and tricks and inspiration, and in the presence of right people as well. So just to be, just to kick things off with a bang, I was just, putting down a few things about the question as to what would be the tips and tricks in order to get your community planning started for 2022. The first thing, and the only thing, obviously, that I will recommend over here from my end would be to paint the picture or set the scene in terms of community straight away, and just do that yourself. So you're the community professional, you're the community lead, basically, at your company, organization, team, wherever. So basically, nobody else will be doing it for you, and nobody else should be doing it for you. So immediately get to work, try and organize your story, try and get all your story, all the elements of your story together. So be proactive. Don't wait for the management to ask you what will be the community work, what would be the community work that will be planned for the year. Just basically get everything that you need to tell the management together. Hone your elevator pitch, hone your buy-in documentation and everything, and just basically, as they say very nicely, just take this in the best way possible. Hit them first and hit them hard, basically. So get them, get the power of the community, which is as powerful as a freight train. Get that power to the community. Expose that power to the management immediately and straight away, so that they are prepared for the buy-in, which will come next. So over to you, Blake and Pablo.
Let me go here next. And so I think the very first thing that I would recommend, please do never hire me or Juan Diego to sing West Side Story in any of your like company meetings. So just let's get that out of the way. So the second thing that I would recommend is really when you're doing the community planning. So the most important thing is simplicity, right? We talk about MVP, minimally viable product, and there's so much you can do at community. But the first thing really when we look at community today, simplicity. And so across your programs, your community events, your community content, right? Let's know what we are in business for, right? So you go to some companies, they have over 200 different content types. Do you really need 200 content types for the year to be successful? And so I generally will challenge that and say no. So when I'm doing community planning, it's not like necessarily where we're growing, it's where we're optimizing. Where can we get even more simple? So when we look at programs, events, and content, can we get those down to 4 to 5 main pillars? And by that is like, these are going to be the 4 to 5 things we want to be in business for. So if we're doing certain types of events, right? If thought leadership isn't one of them, let's add it there. And that's going to be like a hero one, right? For us. And then the other 3, those are the ones we're going to be in business for and that we're going to measure against. And then the same thing with community content and the same thing with community programs. Let's get it down to 3 or 4 actual pillar types and have a narrow focus on them and get those really good measured. And then we can get them out the door. And then the other side to that, right, when we're doing it, is having 2 types of levels. So 1, hero, and 2 is like run and maintain. So generally there, if we're narrowing our pillars down across our programs, events, and community content type, everything can't be like a hero campaign, right? If something's going to appeal to 20% of your audience versus 80%, if it's going to appeal to 80%, that's going to be a priority 1. That's going to be a hero campaign. So really think about these distinctions. So as we roll these out, what is a hero type versus just run and maintain? Because people will respond to the energy of which you're doing it. But the problem is sometimes if everything is packaged up and there's pageantry around a hero event, you can possibly lose people. And the only other little nugget that I would do in there is when you look at that orchestra across the year, it's like a song. There's got to be that repetition in these. Do I need a thought leadership like every 2 months? Because I might have lost people that, in that sort of span. So I might do it like every other Thursday, making sure to do thought leadership stuff out there. Because if I'm doing it every 2 months, that top of mind, when people say community, they may not like associate us back with thought leadership. But by the end of the year, if we've got the right repetition, the right way that we're prioritizing it around hero, that people are like, oh, wow, Ilker, Pablo's community. Yeah, thought leadership is a really big part of that. And the last point that I'll leave you with today is your mountain, right? Your mountain could be different, right? And so I was just out this week and I saw someone that got up, not on the top of a mountain, but one of the mountain perches and was doing a big victory pose. That was their mountain. Their achievement was completely different than everybody else. I had no idea what they were going through, but for them, that was their Mount Everest. So in your community program, it's easy to feel imposter syndrome or to beat yourself up. but that one perch that you get to this year, you might completely leave your competition in the dust, right? Community is a journey. Don't just think we're getting to the top of Mount Everest this year. Find your perch, and your perch might be amazing. Your competition is left in the dust. And as David Spinks always says, you can't copy and paste community. They can copy and paste so many things about us, but what you're building up today is beautiful. And if you are here in our event today, you're at the right place. You clearly have community running in your blood and DNA. And over to the rocket ship relationship flywheel himself, Pablo.
Blake, I'm glad you mentioned imposter syndrome, because all this flattering that you guys are giving me is giving me major imposter syndrome. So I appreciate. I also like the pressure. So I'm into all of it. Real quick, Arlen is asking, what are you defining as pillars, Blake? You want to go a little bit deeper into that? Is that now? Is that in the next section? Do you want to clear that up for him?
Yeah, so just like at a high level, you can think of pillars as main categories. These are the main things when we ladder up to. So if we have all these events, 30 events, and we were to categorize them to say like thought leadership, and we need to do it. So we look across 30 events, okay, we've got 10 that are that. So on a board, we put, okay, these 10 over in that category for thought leadership. So pillars is going to be the main overall categories that you're building towards.
Awesome. And I'm going to expand on that a bit, because I use pillars a lot in what I talk about. To me, the value of community is this like alchemy that comes from the sum of the parts being greater than the whole, right? And in order to really tease that stuff out, you have to story every year, every quarter, every so often, right? So my advice when you're getting this started is to take inventory, and I'll expand on that, right? The number one thing you really need to take inventory is the people who you are seeking to serve. What is valuable to them, right? Like your product, your community, whatever you're up to is one pillar of what's valuable to them. But there's a whole ecosystem of things around where they're trying to get, that they are using you as an Uber or as a rickshaw or as a pathway, whatever it is, right? There's a whole ecosystem around all that they're going to need to get onto, that part of their journey that they're trying to seek, that they see you as an ally for, right? So take that inventory, right? Like understand, if I am somebody that is trying to pull off virtual events, right? Bevy's doing this fantastically, right? Like Bevy has acquired CMX so that they acquired this platform in order to enable you with tools. And then they're bringing in people like Blake and people like Ilker and people like myself to come and show up and talk to you about how you create community out of a virtual event, because the best thing that you can do in a virtual event is create community, right? So like if that's what you've identified, your constituency, that's what they're trying to seek, right? Figure out how many things around that you can stack up, like how many things they need that you can offer. Then take inventory of your available resources, right? The other beauty about community is that, sure, it takes a little bit to get started, but once it gets rolling, there is no more cost-effective way of doing things than through a community, right? Like crowdsourcing stuff has become common nomenclature, and that's what we're doing as community professionals, right? So once you figure out what is valuable to the people that you're trying to serve, figure out who within the people you're trying to serve has that value to offer, right? That's step one. Then figure out who within your own personal network or within the company has that value to offer. Then figure out who within one DM has that value to offer that would like to, that can offer that, right? And then at that point is design the stage of where you are going to offer that value, right? If it's your message board, you got to figure out some kind of, text type stage, right? Is it going to be a newsletter? Is it going to be your email list? Is it just your social media pages, right? Like how you're going to offer the value that you have sourced out of inventory is a big thing. I think that video right now is a big thing. So figuring out a way to do that via video, figuring out a way to do that via audio, however you're going to do it, you're going to want to take that inventory of what they need, take the inventory of who has that to offer, and then figure out where you're going to offer that. That goes beyond just inside the community, right? Because inside the community, you want to offer the most value, but you got to parse out little parts community to attract people into the community in order to do that, right? So just start thinking of it that way and figure out that map of what they need, who can offer it, and how I'm going to provide that. To me is step one. And I think we're going to, in the rest of our conversation, we're going to talk about different ways of doing that. I'm really hot on a couple of things that are working for us, and I'm pumped to get into it. Oh, by the way, speaking of pillars, think of it in pillars, right? So if we're trying to organize community, right? Like there's the pillar of the psychology of community. There's the pillar of technology of how you can interact with community. There's a pillar of thought leadership about what community can be. And then there's the pillar of like executing it in-house, getting buy-in, getting people to buy in on it, right? So like if you think of that in those, I don't know if that's the right number of pillars, you probably want to spend more than 2 seconds thinking about it, right? But like as long as you can figure out and classify it into pillars, now like Blake said, you can organize events around those pillars. You can have a calendar of like, okay, well, I got Ilker, who's an awesome tactician, and I don't have a lot of other tacticians. I have a bunch of other yahoos like Pablo that talk about like networking and relationship building. I don't need to find more Pablos. I need to find more Ilkers, right? And that way you can take this category of different pillars that you can stack up, that then feeds the category of events and themes that you can do, and that feeds your stage.
We can just say there's not enough Ilkers to go around, so we're definitely sorry about that. Same with Pablo, and kind of like, yeah. So it's really great for just really for me, it's like a restaurant. So many go out of business because they're trying to be too many things, right? Or they try to start too many stores. And you say, are we a Chinese restaurant, Italian restaurant? Let's get that identity. So for a community program, these are the 4 main areas and categories that we want to dominate. So you're doing all this stuff. We want to cut out the noise, right? So really getting into the business of what success is. And there's a lot of stuff we can do for noise. We can do hula hoop contests, roller skating contests, but that doesn't align back with our key personas. Why are we doing it, right? And there's one community that gives away like $300 hoodies to everybody that signs up. So it's going to and it doesn't necessarily align back with personas, acquisition funnel, or anything. So it's like, why are they in that business? I have no idea. That's right. But here's a thing for the panel. So we've got the planning, but we haven't even talked about the most important part of 2022 community planning. And so the 2 things that I want to kind of talk about and stress is, one, we came up with it. That's great, but that's not the hard part really a lot of times, right? Now we need to do 2 things. We need to get executive buy-in, and we need to start cross-aligning with other teams. So for the community team, it's like, don't go off into that silo. A big part of your community plan is like, how do we work? Like if there was a team like customer success, maybe we didn't work great with them last year. How do we work better with them this year? So part of that planning might be just that. So for the panel today, working and getting alignment with other teams with that 2022 community planning. And then ultimately, the big hurdle for a lot of people, how do we get that executive buy-in? What if we are not speaking the same sort of like C-level, C-suite talk to them? Do we need like a separate executive summary presentation for them? What are some of the ways that you've worked with other teams and executives in the past as you're putting it together? Because if we don't get their buy-in, we're just off doing our own thing.
First?
Yeah.
Go for it, Pablo.
I'll do it. I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit. Man, to get people to buy in on stuff, you got to make the value for them painfully obvious, right? Like everybody cares about themselves more than they care about everything else. Like if you think about what's important to you, it's the stuff that's important to you, and everyone else is just like you, right? So getting executive buy-in is about phrasing it in what is important to the executive. Getting cross-functional buy-in is phrasing it in what's important to the team, right? I think this is part of the inventory exercise, is figure out who you need buy-in from, right? And I'm coming in from a different perspective, right? Because I'm an outside agency. I have not been inside of a tech firm where I need to go, get budget or whatever. They're already in purchasing mode or whatnot, right? But if you're talking to executives, cost of acquisition, lifetime value, right? Operational costs that maintain the same while all this stuff goes up. That is executive buy-in. If you're talking to marketing, they need content, they need social proof, they need validation, right? Get their buy-in by incentivizing them on like, hey, I've thought about how we're going to get these awesome pieces of marketing and social validation based on this event, right? If you're talking a product, qualitative feedback, product journey, things that they actually want, right? So again, if you're going back into these pillars, bake in those things that you need these cross-functional teams and these multiple stakeholders to buy into in order to get by. Is that right?
Cool. So it's I mean, if you're obviously if you're Pablo, it's much easier to, let's say, to sell the community to the top management, because obviously you got all the natural skills. So what are you going to do if you're not Pablo, or if you're, let's say, me or whatever? So but it's more like the reason why I'm referring to obviously Pablo's great energy over here is sales, is you're basically selling the community. Of course, this might be a bit of a too clinical a word, but it is what you're actually doing, because community is something new. It always existed under some team, under some customer success, marketing, or whatever. But it is ultimately a situation where you are selling a certain investment where there's going to be some return. When we in the industry affectionately refer it to as return on investment to community. So basically, a few things connected to what I've already said previously is that you're actually, setting the scene, trying to come up with the story in terms of community, and then basically you're trying to, get the top management involved and get their buy-in. So yes, you're not, you just have to hit them first, hit them hard. You just got to make sure that you are actually at the helm, at the driving, at the wheel of this thing, as you are, dealing with the top management and other departments as you're trying to set up your community for 2022. So my recommendation to you is to use some data and some stories. So the data is thankfully, thanks to organizations and networks and communities like CMX, it's much easier to to present, to gather, and then basically to to use. So every year, CMX actually has a community industry report survey, and that's the data for 2021 is available. And by the way, the 2022 survey is still open. So if you're a community professional, please make sure that you take a few minutes of your time to fill it up, because all the data that you're feeding in is actually congregated to be used in a report that can be used throughout the year for the next year as well. So thanks to people like you, we now have data to understand and to present the impact of community management, or the community, what community can bring to an organization in such a nice way. There are a few other organizations, they actually do some reports. And of course, get some stories together. At the end of the day, sales is all about feeling. And that's why we really like Pablo speaking, because the feeling that we're getting is so cool. It's all about feeling, and then basically the feeling can only be supported by stories, because as humans, we are so naturally inclined to listen to stories. So get some community success stories, and there are plenty. There's companies like Notion, there's companies like Mural, few others, and of course even more traditional ones like Harley Davidson's and their Harley Owners Group, which is very, very classic now as a community example. So whichever area of community management you're dealing with, whether it's brand communities, talent communities, anything like developer communities, which Blake and I, we always talk about, there's always stories that you can actually get from the industry. Just get them all together, package them nicely, support them with data, and support them with your passion, and you really can't lose, in my opinion. And if you have any questions, we at the CMX Las Vegas and otherwise are here to help. Blake?
Love it. And I think really for me, just on some of those points, won't talk too much on the cross-aligning with other teams. That's definitely critical. But at the executive level, the things here now is like, so at big companies, when I'm walking into work, my office, the VP, I've had this happen multiple times, says, I've got 10, 15 seconds Tell me why community should exist, why it should matter. You've got 10, 15 seconds, go. And so you have to know, like, kind of like that elevator pitch. If an executive stops me today and says that, what am I going to say? And when I get into the executive meetings, the most important thing is move away from marketing isms, community isms, right? We want to get to executive isms. So how executives talk, a lot of times what we'll see is people socialize their community plans and stuff in various product teams, marketing team, customer success. But usually the language and style is more suited towards like marketing. We want to really make sure everybody in marketing understands it. But executives don't talk like marketing people. So when we take it back, we've got to have that executive play to it. And so they're like, Blake, I don't care about like all this like social, Twitter, higher logic, vanilla, CMX, whatever. How does this move the business forward, right? Distill it down to me. How does the community move the business forward? For our key audiences, this is what we're trying to do this year. We're trying to grow like cloud customers or retain them. Like if we're in SaaS or product or these different things, how is community moving the business forward this year? And a really key point that Ilker made is sometimes we come up with really beautiful slides with data and other types of really good points. But unless we have a story to wrap that in, they could forget it the second we leave. And so a lot of times with a lot of executive presentations that I've been with over the year, the thing that still resonates with them all these years later is the stories that we told, right? So what we basically did is, here's the key persona A or a key strategic initiative. Do we have a community member story that aligns with that, right? And we'll really talk to it. And if we do, we can also cheat even further. So instead of a PowerPoint slide, what if we just got that customer community member on a video? And they can just say, hey, this is why community matter to me. This is how it helped my business grow, things like that. So it's not just you. So you just got this in your back pocket for like a 30-second video to go out and execute it. So it's like not all these great slides we obsess over. Sometimes it's just this one simple story that said, here's how we're moving the business forward with a key customer type that they really cared about. And they're like, oh, wow, now I get it. And they'll probably remember it like well after, basically that it's run. So that's really, going to be the main things that like on my side that I would recommend.
Can I add something to the storyline? The storyline, no pun intended, right? But stories, stories scientifically work on the brain, right? Like there's this data of two people listening to two different stories with EKG set up at different times, and you see that their rhythms match up to the pace of the story. And I think we're conditioned to believe that a story is just me starting with something and ending with a moral or ending with a payoff. But there's actual formulas to storytelling, and studying that is one of the most ROI intensive things you can do for anything in your life, right? Like I've been deep down this rabbit hole in this past year. Everybody know, or most people know, Joseph Campbell's and the hero's journey and building a story brand. It's like this 15-step thing, but there's other story frameworks that have that are out there that are really, really functional, right? Like the most functional one I found is something called the ABT, who's this guy, Park Howell, champions. It's the and, but, therefore. And it's how you start a story to engage the limbic system. And what that is you say a statement of agreement, then you insert conflict, and then you present the big idea, right? So like, as a marketing executive, I know you're looking for a channel that can drive down cost of acquisition and increase lifetime value. But most of the marketing channels we invest in eventually have lower ROI. Therefore, if we find one that actually increases lifetime value and decreases cost of acquisition, the longer it goes, we need to invest in it. And that's what community is, right? Because relationships will always continue to, right? You start there, you're engaging the limbic system of what they're saying. And then you go into, so for example, we built out this community for this real estate investing company that in 1 year created a $40 million channel when their digital channel had stagnated in 5 years. And then you go into it, right? But like the setup of the story and the idea of context, character, conflict, big idea, and resolution is something to study, and it's something to really, really practice.
Interesting there, because I lost the thought, but where I got into stories with the executives is, so you spend all this work with all these PowerPoint slides, they could be just 3, but you spend so many hours like with the team and others shaping them. But ultimately, you know what happens in executive meetings? Like you get 30 minutes and suddenly like it goes to 10 because the person before you like keeps going and going, or they're getting grilled. And so suddenly you've got 2 minutes to present. So then it's like, crap, we've got 3 slides we've got to try to walk people through. And if they're starting from scratch on community, like that hill to get so big. So then it's just like, what's one story we can go in, hit the ground, boom, here's where it's going, and they'll know everything. The story tells all the points we're trying to say, right? So a lot of times, like, you're not going to have all the time in the world. You might only get 30 seconds. You might only get 2 minutes. So the story, sometimes it's like where you go to, plan B, forget these PowerPoint slides. Let me just get up and hit these slides, talk about what they care about, and just not put them to sleep. And if everybody else wants to do like these 20, 30 slides that are putting people to sleep, let them do it. Let them show like why community matters, what community-led growth does. Guess we're all like passionate about community here, so there seems to be a thread here. Yeah, so I think that's great. And then just sort of moving on. So Pablo is known as the relationship flywheel king. And so kind of as the relationship flywheel goes, I mean, we've got a link to where you talk about it at CMX Summit. But for teams looking at 2022 planning and saying like, okay, relationship flywheel, how would I apply that to my community planning? Is there some things like Pablo's thinking of, that worked in 2021 that maybe you're like, let's optimize it this way for 2022. So the floor is yours. And once again, thanks for everybody joining season 1, episode 1 of CMX Connect Las Vegas.
Awesome. Katie, I see you say I put on my sales hat, and we actually just got hats for my company, so I'm going to wear it. Is that cool? So relationship flywheel, right? If you haven't watched the video, you haven't watched the keynote from CMX, the relationship flywheel is essentially creating a live internet talk show where what you're doing is on a regular basis, having a one-to-one relationship building session with somebody that you're interviewing, like you would do on a podcast, like you would do on a keynote stage or a fireside chat, a la what Blake is doing right now. Invite people. There you go. It's hat time. Invite people to be a part of it, like we're doing right now, so that we can develop relationships one to few, right? And then repurpose that content one to many. Take this 1 hour conversation and turn it into a context formatted YouTube video, into a podcast, into a bunch of different LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram clips and quote cards and whatnot, right? And if you do that over and over again, right, and you start to build the value of, that's the stage I'm talking about, right? Like this becomes the stage. And the more people that you have on, that you introduce to more people, that you then repurpose content around and promote what they're doing, the more people will want to continue coming, and it'll continue to get better. And it's a flywheel effect, right? So in the case study that we talk about during the summit presentation, it's this case study where we built out this $40 million client acquisition digital channel for this company that had been completely stagnated. And what it's led to now in year 2 and year 3 is that this went from being a once a week internet talk show like this to now people are meeting in person, right? Like there are these different chapters that are sprouting out around the US based on this show that we created that's really just a webinar for the company, right? Like it's really just a way to meet the people that you need to interact with. So the long-term tail of this thing is getting really, really obvious. And I want to bring up 2 things. One thing that's happening right now and the thing that I'm really hot on. What we noticed inside of this show, and this was actually my client that brought this up, is the fact that we don't have gaudy audience numbers. We don't have this like insane list. We get about 400 podcast episodes a week, right? That means that each episode is probably being downloaded like 100 to 160 times. But what we do get is 40 to 60 people showing up to each event, right? And out of those 40 to 60 people, 25 to 30 are the same people. And what's happening in the chat for those folks is just as important or more as what's happening on screen. And that is really, really deliberate. So really it's these 30 people that are the ones that are now creating events in their hometown of Palo Alto, California, and in Baltimore and in Miami and these different places that are driving this external value. And I think that was a really, really important realization, because when people think about community, they think, oh, I need to have like a 3,000 person Facebook group, or I got to have a forum with all this stuff. No, man, what you really need to have is 25 to 30 highly engaged people, so that every time that satellite person decides to tap in, they're like, oh, this is real. Cool. When I'm ready, I'm ready. Right. And it grows slowly after that. But that's what you really, really, really want to focus on. The way that we do that on a show specifically is to make sure that you're driving those 3 levels of connection, right? Like when I'm talking to Blake and I'm talking to Ilker, I'm also shouting out to Leanne, and I'm also shouting out to Katie, and I'm trying to contextualize what they're saying for Blake, and I'm making you feel seen, and I'm making it feel like you're interacting with me, and you're having a warm intro to the rest of the people on the stage. Do that over and over again. Start giving people some nicknames, start remembering where they're from, right? Just typical human touch stuff to make you feel seen and heard and special, and share the stage as much as you can, right? Like just because you're in the chat and you're not on the screen doesn't mean that Diego is not a big part of this programming, right? Like Diego's been, he came on and sang, and he's been funny in the chat, and we're including him in on the conversation, right? So like if you can really zero in on that stuff, it adds, right? So like let's say it's a chat board, right? Let's say it's not this. Let's say it's a Slack channel. Maybe what you're doing is you're reaching out to folks in the Slack channel, set up a call, and then talk about them inside the Slack channel, right? Be like, hey, just had a call with Jenny. Love what she's doing with her community company. She's starting to work with these different clients. If you want to know about XYZ, Jenny, can you share something, right? So then Jenny's incentivized to go in and share, and other people will start interacting with her, right? And it's just like, how do you drive that tightly formed nucleus of 25 to 30 people is where that source of $40 million worth of revenue and over just $1 million of profit was attributed to those 30 folks in that year, which I think is a really, really profound thing. The next thing that I'm really hot on is something that we're starting to experiment right now. It's create a stage where you can share value, right? You have to make it valuable to the folks that show up. And there is now a proliferation of, so online education has had these like 3 waves, right? It started off with the asynchronous education wave, right? Like the people that are just putting out these courses or on YouTube, and you just sign up and you learn it at your own pace, right? And that made a bunch of money for a whole bunch of people, right? Like Pat Flynn and these guys that made millions of dollars because they were the first ones to teach the lead certification system. Big deal. Then these platforms came in, and what they consolidated was the audience's attention, and then they put you in front of people, and they allow you to make money that way, or they allow you to build audience that way. Right now, the stuff that's happening is cohort online-based education is becoming a real thing, right? Stuff like what Nas Daily is doing. There's platforms like Maven and like Click2 and a couple of different places that are really, really starting to enable them. That is a macro trend that's happening. People learn better when they are being taught something along with other people, right? So now I've enrolled into one of these programs with Amanda Holmes, who's she's the daughter of Chet Holmes, who wrote The Ultimate Sales Machine, and she's like teaching their core story stuff. And what I'm seeing that as a formula is something that I'm rapidly applying into my community formula. And it is, if you can figure out, or again, inventory, right? Organizationally, the knowledge that you have, whatever you're trying to accomplish, and you can create a cohort-based course, like a 4 to 6 week course where Monday nights people show up for 2 hours and they're all on a Zoom screen learning one thing, and you're teaching them something, or somebody in your network is teaching them something, and then they're contextualizing and applying it with some goal at the end, right? Like this ties right into how I learned community building with nonprofits. And it's the idea that if you're pulling off a event together, it bonds you, right? Like if you're working on something together, it bonds you much more than if you're just all learning things individually or trying to work on something individually, right? So like if you're bringing people together to do that, that by itself is a bonding experience. That's a great way to bring those 25 to 30 people in that you want to be your tight nucleus. And once you're developing this cohort course, right, if the formula that we're adding to it to really add community to the mix is, and Jenny signed up for our course coming up, so I'm really pumped to like get her opinion on all this stuff, right? But like we are doing it. We have a Facebook group that we are forming of the people that sign up, right? You know, I'm reserving a couple of spots that we gave away to people that are really high hitters that you want to get to know, right? So that you're not just signing up to learn amongst other common folk like me, but also with some New York Times bestselling authors and whatever, right? Like that's valuable of who you're connecting. And we're going to then not only teach this thing on Monday nights, but also host office hours, right? So now we have a 1 hour call every single week where people in the course can show up and be like, oh, I'm working on this and I need some clarification on that. And me and my team can give them advice on that, right? So what is that creating now? That's creating our ability to continue to contextualize the way that we see the world, the thing that brings our community together, right? Like the difference between a podcast or a YouTube channel and an internet talk show relationship flywheel. I'm now going to get a whole bunch of reps at, oh yeah, you're thinking about it like that. That's a good idea. Think about it like this. Or, man, you thought about it like that. That's great. We're going to add that to what we're doing. And that creates that content that is now going to allow us to evangelize what we're doing and what we believe in to bring more people into the community, right? And then last but not least is we're selling this thing dirt cheap for $200, right? And that you know, you look at that from a business standpoint, it's like our service is $8,500 a month, but we're selling it for $200, right? And we're going to teach you everything that we know. And that doesn't make a lot of sense until you realize that, hey man, if I can sell 25 of these at $200 once a month, that is, I had done this math before and I already blanked out on it, but and I'm gonna bring it back to why this is important, right? Like 25 times 250 is 6,250, right? Times 12 is $75,000, right? So just at 250, that's $75,000. At 500, it becomes $150,000, right? So if you are pitching to an executive how to get buy-in on your community and how this can be and how this can, you know, create a community and pay for itself, if you can take inventory of the knowledge that you can offer that stage, you can have guest speakers of people that you want to come in and be part of this course, right? And you can educate your marketplace on things that they want to know already. It doesn't have to be on how to use your product. It can just be on like how to run a great community, right? Like create this like no-brainer course of how to pitch community or whatever, bring in the influential thought leaders around it. And if you were able to sell 25 spots to this once a month, guess what? You just paid for a really nice salary for your community manager, and the rest is bonus. The marketing is bonus, the awareness is bonus, the community is bonus. It's all profit from there. So that's my big aha moment that I'm coming here with, is this idea that I believe that cohort-based educational courses to feed the community is going to be like the big unlock that people are going to start noticing at some point.
That's amazing. So do we got so you've got a training program for it. Anybody can sign up for that. Are you going to write a book too and all this stuff too?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I had commissioned the book before I did the course, but the ghostwriter ran off with my money.
Oh my God.
Yeah, real talk. But yeah, so listen, and to be, you know, like we had thought about this course thing for a long time, and we're like, oh, how do we put it together? Blah, 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 blah. Boom. If you think of like one really practical tweet of stuff that want to know, we pre-sold it. Like our course is not done yet. And we sold 25 spots because it's just something people want to know. And now that we have the demand there, the cash flows in to be baked in. Now we can really invest in this thing and make it really, really, really good. So, you know, it's people get in their way trying to like pre-plan this stuff, when if you can solidify the demand around what people want to know about, and then you can create the community because you have pre-sold it, you have pre-funded it, and you can go forth that way. And now you can just be an evangelist for what you do, because at a really low price point of learning the methodology that helps you use your tool, but also helps you execute in your business in whatever way you need to do it. You know, you are liquidating the funnel on the front end of the community piece, and it makes it really, really easy buy-in.
Wow. Be the stage. Love all that stuff. And I think one of the big quotes from from Pablo, community creation is the future of all business development. So you definitely picked up on that here. Before we jump over to the Q&A, let's do a quick giveaway. So for those in the USA, we're going to give away a Grubhub coupon for somebody in Will of Names. So let me get Katie back up to stage. So if you're in the USA, you have a chance for winning a Grubhub coupon. So Katie, if you want to come back up here and share your screen, there's this cool thing called Wheel of Names.
Awesome. So good. I am so thankful that I'm here because it's all stuff that I'm dealing with building a community right now. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This was super helpful. Okay. So I've got everyone's names up here. Screen sharing going. Please forgive me for all my tabs. It's probably going to give many of you like a lot of anxiety. So sorry. Okay. Can we see everything or is it like super microscopic?
It's good. It's good.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's do it. So we're going to click to spin. Here we go. It's very exciting.
This is for people in the USA. If you're international, we'll send Ilker down to you.
And we've got Jenny.
Is she
Down to wherever you are.
Is Jenny still here? She's got like a yeah.
She's here.
Boom! There we go. So Jenny is the winner. And Pablo,
Awesome.
Pablo, how do you know Jenny?
Jenny and I went to University of Florida together. Go Gators!
What a small world,
We
though,
won't
right?
hold that
Can you
against
imagine
you.
all these years later, you're going to be like on a virtual event with Jenny?
Dude, reconnecting with Jenny has changed my. So what happened was I got invited to speak on CMX at the CMX Summit, and Jenny like swooped in. I hadn't talked to her in like 10, 15 years, and was like, "Oh my God, you're in my industry." I was like, "There's an industry about community? I had no idea." And she's been the person that's like opened up my eyes to like everything else that's out there, and plugged me into this community. It's been a total black swan moment for me. Thank you, Jenny. You're the best.
Awesome. See, it is a small world. We're uniting everybody one at a time.
Yeah.
All right, let's go over to, I'll let Katie lead. Let's go over to Q&A. If you have a question, we will bring you up to stage. You don't have to get onto video, but we will bring you up so you can at least talk to audio.
All right. I got to take my sweater on. I'm schwitzing over here.
But I can't actually see the Q&As, so that might have to come on your end.
There's no questions over there, so we can just
Awesome.
If you got questions, throw them into the chat. We'll bring you up to stage. Any questions for Pablo, for any of us, let us know. We are in the Q&A.
So I don't know if I'm allowed to ask a question, but I actually have a question.
Go for it.
So I'm in a very interesting situation where community is sitting under product, which is like, it's very quirky for me, and I don't think I should be here, but we're doing the best we can. And I would love to get your guys' advice on like how, I guess, learning how to have patience or like any skills or little reminders that you would recommend for dealing with very technical folks when, kind of like what you said, Paul, some of community is just, you just have to try it. Like I can't promise what the outcomes are always going to be, and I can't necessarily test every single thing that I'm wanting to do. So I would love to hear, like, has that been something you guys have had to deal with, or like any recommendations on kind of figuring out how to navigate that area, really? Bueller, anyone?
I've had to, for my journey, it's really been listening to the market as much as possible. And by that, I mean, I don't shut up about it. I engage everybody that I can about it. And I take every single bit of feedback as an iteration of how much closer I can get to it. So I don't know if that counts as patience. And I think I'm coming at it from a different place, right? Like I've never been an employee somewhere where I'm in charge of community. I've just been like trying to build a business where I sell community. And what I had to figure out was like, most people, community isn't a Monday morning problem. So I have to figure out how to solve their Monday morning problem to get to the thing that I want, that I think that I really care about. And I don't know if that really helps or not, but it's just kind of my journey.
I think on my, just one of the things that I always love to do is, so we always sit in meetings with people, but if the only relationship time I get with you is in meetings, then basically it's a failure. So with all the people that I have to work with on a regular basis, part of my calendar has to just be getting like some 30-minute coffee time, lunch time, or dinner, right? Where we can go out and build relationships. Because if I'm only sitting in meetings with them, you can sometimes run into walls, or they could be potentially blockers. And as we sort of like go out and socialize, you're like, hey, wait a minute, I actually see that we're aligned here. And so building up that rhythm and repetition with the people, and that will then translate back into other meetings, because a huge part of what we're doing is building consensus, uniting people. In a lot of companies, that can be really tough and challenging, you know. So I'm like the silo buster in the Pablo video, but I think for just getting out some quick little coffee time, lunch time with some of the key people. And what I prioritize, so the most difficult person in any given meeting to work with, that's who I want to be by the end of the quarter best friends with. And so that's like one of my internal goals. How do I make them my best friend? Let's get out. Doesn't always work, but definitely try it.
As for me, let me try and see if I can, because Katie loves stories, I'm going to try and see if I can storyfy this a bit. When you're having an argument with a significant other, or, somebody, in a heated argument, they just say, oh, it's not my problem. And then what we say that, makes it much worse. We just say, well, I'll make it your problem. Then, imagine this and turn this around. So imagine a situation, you're working with another department, and then they just say, it's not my priority. So why not make it their priority? Why not? It's along the lines of what Blake and Pablo has already said. Just try and learn what actually is what they really want to achieve, and make community what they want to achieve. It might look simple, but it's sometimes we just tend to forget that other people have got, just like Pablo said, different Monday morning problems, or not even a Monday morning problem, like a 12-month problem, a performance cycle problem that they need to solve. And just if you basically repurpose community to serve towards solving that problem, then you might be winning, and then you will be surprised in how quickly people will actually cooperate with you.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something, like, I know I've been trying really hard of like, where are you guys at? How can I help? And like leverage community as a vehicle that helps accomplish whatever their task is. Because I feel like it helps them see like, a lot of times, like, they don't even understand what community is, and they don't understand like what can be accomplished through it. So if I can get them to see like, hey, here's your problem and here's how we can solve it through these community efforts that are also very aligned with everything else we're doing, then like it's a little bit easier. But man, these product people.
we feel you. And another thing I can suggest very, very quickly is to find a similar story. You'll be surprised that obviously, many of the companies that we work for, they're not the first and they're not the last in what they do. So if you find a similar story that is solved by community, it just sells it instantly, because people will just say, oh, it's been done like this and they've achieved this. So then, they just look at it with a different view.
Reference that.
And to Ilker's point, I find myself solving just like all of my problems through content creation, and not even through content creation, through content, right? Like whether it's my content or someone else's content, and sharing it, and then taking. So I'm trying to think of an example, right? But like, if in Ilker's scenario, right? If you find the story of something that is applicable to this person, you don't have to necessarily bring it to him right away. You can send it to him, you can tag him on it, you can share it with him. Then you can create your own post about, oh, I learned this, and now that I know this, I've been working with this one person, you don't have to say him by name, who has this problem. And I think this could solve it because you contextualize it in the own story that you tell. And then, you know, by the time you actually have a conversation with that person, that's the third touch point, right? Like, you know, in sales, it's kind of like a touch point game and contextualization game. So like, if you can give them the original one, then make your own content kind of piece about it, and then have the conversation about it, it's like you just hit them 3 times and you only have to do it once, kind of thing.
Break into a sales cadence. Absolutely. Hey, I'm ex sales. I get it.
Yeah. One other thing, like as part of that relationship flywheel, so like kind of leading people from the back of the bus, so where you're not too directional about it, is with the different staff or key people, getting them involved in community events. And so what's amazing here is so that they're going to be like partnered up with other community members. And when they start going to the events, they're getting in like virtual elbow time with these people. They're telling their stories. And so just as kind of like a volunteer, that sometimes they may not volunteer, but getting them to the events, now they start to see the proof in the pudding, how this is driving business outcomes. So it's basically like, hey, just come on, be on this event or speak. But what you're also doing is you're pairing that with other community members. And so when they get in virtual time and start to see that stuff, that's where it really takes off. And another hack that a lot of us do, hack's probably like too strong of a word, is like coming up with a community council. So when you're in these big companies, all these different teams and heavily matrixed, essentially is that they all have their own priorities. Why am I not the most important person on the community roadmap? But when you actually get a community council, and the other side of that too, just to quickly back up, is that we can't be in all of their meetings for every team, but on the council, like getting that alignment, we get one person from a different business unit that's going to be like, hey, I'm going to represent my part of the business. I'm going to take notes. And then in all my meetings, I'll give the community update for you. But now that I'm here, people, they start to see, hey, wow, there's all these other people that are also like here involved in it. And let's all like kind of work together to help to build the roadmap and shape priority. I see like it's not just me that wants something, it's all these people. Community team could be just like one person and one developer, right? So
no, it's awesome. Absolutely. It is just one person.
Looks like we have like closed it out. This is the time where the bartender's like, okay, everybody, last call. They turn the lights on, wink, wink.
College Katie is putting drinks in my purse. And then waking up being like, why is my bag wet and there's broken glass in it? This is so weird.
But now I really want to go to Lubbock.
Come on.
Let's go.
Much better than UF or whatever, swampland. I mean, sports aren't great, but they're really fun.
All right. So it looks like it's just us now. But to take us out for the first season 1, episode 1 for CMX Connect Las Vegas, amazing session. I think there's a lot for people to gravitate to. Took some amazing notes. But as we close it out, I'll just give each of you a time, just final thoughts on today. And maybe like one thing you're excited about for 2022. It could be community, it could be something else.
I'm never short on words, man. Like I'm super pumped about this cohort thing. Like I really do think that this is the low-hanging fruit to unlock it for everybody, right? Because again, if you can liquidate the funnel on the front end, then you're good, right? So if you can sell like a $50, $100, $200 kind of like course that provides insane value while connecting you to people, and that pays for the community program and everything else is a bonus, I think it's a major unlock. So that's what we're experimenting on right now. And then tying it into the relationship flywheel, right? Like how that also then leads to the show and the extra content and whatnot. I'm really bullish on that thing. I think we've unlocked something.
I mean, as for me, basically, I'm just going to take that. I'm going to what Pablo's being saying. It looks like this is something that we've been talking with Katie some other time ago. It has never been a better time to be a community professional these days. So in the old times, you used to sort of dig deep for resources and try and sort of just find some things, and you just try and apply to community management, and then basically try and find your way and then try and accomplish things. Whereas now you have all the networks in the world, you have a lot of books, a lot of resources, a lot of podcasts, and going to Pablo's point, now you have all these cohort-based courses where experts, people who've actually done their things, they actually are sharing their expertise, and they're going to be, showing you the way to do stuff. So it's never been a better time. So there is no excuse now. So to go out there, and I've just grabbed it from the bookcase over there, having seen Blake's background, make things happen. Basically, just get things done. There's again no excuse. It's the best time of the year to do that. What you do now, just like the Gladiator film of 2000, will echo in eternity, will echo in community eternity. So what you do today will be basically setting the scene for the year, setting the scene for 2023. So just get consuming, all the content and all the training that you need to have, and make sure that you are in these circles at Las Vegas and elsewhere to ask the questions and get the answers.
For you, Katie, I'll let you add some final thoughts.
Oh, I didn't know if I was supposed to say anything, but yeah, so it's been like a pretty crazy 6 or 7 months, and Ilker knows he's been on this journey with me. But I just finished my second consulting contract, which is like so incredibly exciting. And then now like truly building a community from scratch. It's been a lot. So this was incredibly helpful for me, just hearing everyone's advice and different ideas and strategies, and looking at things that maybe I've looked at before, but through a different lens, or like putting like more better vocabulary to certain ideas is so incredibly helpful for me. And so almost kind of creating that standard within the community industry, like the whole pillar thing. Like, I feel like, we could really push that out there a lot more and almost create a standard around that in and of itself. And it's something that, like at Sales Hacker, we did a lot of stuff, but it would have been really great if I was able to put a little bit more of aligned terminology around, like, we're doing this because it solves this, which is important to us because of this, right? And so like that was so incredibly helpful for me. But I'm just excited to be here. However y'all need help, I'm definitely here for that. So you just let me know.
Awesome. And then I think from my side, adjust your volume to 3. Sweet Caroline, bum, bum, bum. Community times never felt so good. So good.
Good. So good. So good.
So just as much as
I was not prepared for the singing. I've got to tell you.
It's the closing time for the bar already. The lights are on and people are just singing to each other.
I would have brought College Katie out for the singing.
I mean, for all the stuff that we're going through, this is one of the best times ever to be a community professional. So with everything that's going on, you've got people you can reach out to that will help. You've got me, you've got Katie, you've got Ilker, whatever you're going through. But just that high level view, there has never been a better time to be a community professional. So for everybody that's watching it today, throughout the experience, we're all the constant learner. We're always learning what works best. You can't really copy and paste tactics. So just think about this beautiful world that we get to be a part in, right? We're not like zookeepers and there's all these other types of crazy things we could be. We're a community professional at one of the most amazing times in history. There is a global pandemic, but just like, wow, this is a really great, welcoming place. And just think about all the ways that we can continue to work together with, whether we're a competitor or whether you're like me, can't sing for anything, but still try to, or I don't even know if you call it singing or what you call it. But just really think about that. So just community is an amazing spot, and there's so many amazing people, as we saw today, just with Pablo, Ilker, and Katie. And just thanks to everybody here. And so I think the inspiration lives touched, we can't always see it, but the ripples in ocean as people see this, talk about it, future people, you're watching it on YouTube, hopefully we made a difference, whether it's 2 months from now or 3 months from now. And that's really the last thing for CMX Connect Las Vegas, Season 1, Episode 1. Boom.